Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're going to do a deep dive into something I think you'll find fascinating. You know those Amber Alerts you see pop up on your phone or hear on the radio? Well, we're going to look at where they came from and the impact they've had.
It's amazing to think how this system we rely on to help find missing kids actually started with a really sad case. The abduction and murder of a little girl named Amber Hagerman back in 1996.
And it makes you wonder, what if that system had existed back then?
It's hard to say, but it definitely got people thinking about how to prevent something like that from happening again.
So let's go back to January 13th, 1996. Arlington, Texas. It's a warm day for January, and 9-year-old Amber is out riding bikes with her younger brother, Ricky.
Just an ordinary day out playing in the neighborhood, kids being kids. But they went a little farther than their mom had told them to, and they ended up at this abandoned Winn-Dixie parking lot.
Oh, I see. Not exactly a secluded spot, though, right?
No, not really. Actually, it was a popular spot for kids because of a ramp there, so there were often people around.
Okay, so what exactly happened at the parking lot?
Well, from what we know, Ricky got worried about getting in trouble for going too far, so he headed back to their grandparents' house, leaving Amber behind to ride for a few more minutes.
And those few minutes turned out to be crucial.
Yes, just 8 minutes. That's all it took. 8 minutes after Ricky left, Amber was gone.
Vanished without a trace.
Well, almost. There was one witness, a man who was in his backyard, which is right behind the parking lot, separated by a chain link fence. He saw a black pickup truck pull up. A man jumped out, grabbed Amber right off her bike, and drove off. The witness said Amber was struggling and screaming, but the truck sped away.
That's chilling. To think that someone could just snatch a child in broad daylight like that.
And right in a spot where people would usually be around. It shook the community to its core.
I remember seeing those pictures of her little pink and white bike just lying there on the ground. Just heartbreaking.
It became a symbol of how quickly and randomly something like this could happen.
So what happened next?
Well, Amber's family immediately started a desperate search. Missing posters went up everywhere, they were on the news pleading for help, and the police were working around the clock.
I can't imagine what they were going through.
Just agonizing. But the community really rallied around them. People were tying pink ribbons to their homes, they were volunteering to help with the search, anything they could do.
So everyone was looking for the black pickup truck, right?
Yes, that was the main focus at first. But even with all the effort, the local police, the FBI, volunteers everywhere, leads were scarce. And then 4 days after Amber disappeared, they found her body.
Oh, no.
It was a creek just 4 miles from where she was taken.
Devastating. It must have been so hard for everyone who'd been hoping for her safe return.
It really was. And to make things even more difficult, it had rained heavily the night before, washing away any potential evidence.
So with Amber's body found, the focus shifted to finding her killer.
Exactly. The FBI put together profiles suggesting that the abductor was probably a local, maybe with a criminal record, and that something might have triggered him to do this, some kind of stressful event. They didn't think the abduction was planned out, which made it even scarier. It was just a random act of violence.
Did they ever figure out what that trigger might have been?
No, unfortunately not. And it all happened so fast in such a public place. It just left people reeling, wanting to do something to make sure it wouldn't happen again.
So is this what sparked the idea for the Amber Alert system?
It was a big part of it. But there was one woman in particular, a mother from Fort Worth named Diane Simone, who really pushed for it.
What did she do?
She was just glued to the news following Amber's case, and it really hit her hard. She just kept thinking someone must have seen something. So she called into a local radio show, totally frustrated, and said, "Why don't we use the emergency broadcast system for child abductions, just like we do for severe weather?"
Wow. It seems so obvious now, but it was a pretty radical idea at the time.
Right. It was like, why haven't we thought of this before? Using the power of the media to get the word out immediately.
Did people think it was a good idea?
Absolutely. It was like wildfire. The community loved it. The police loved it. The media, everyone was on board.
So how long did it take for her idea to become reality?
Incredibly, less than a year after Amber's death, they launched the Amber Plan in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And at the heart of it was the Amber Alert.
And of course, Amber Alert stands for
America's Missing. Broadcast emergency response. A fitting tribute to Amber.
Definitely. And that was 1996. So back then, how did they get the word out?
At first, it was all about radio. Imagine that. The radio would just interrupt whatever was playing with an Amber Alert.
Wow. I think that would be even more startling than getting an alert on my phone today.
Right. It was a different time. But it quickly spread to TV, highway signs, and eventually all the digital platforms we use now.
It's amazing how much it's evolved. But I've always wondered how they managed to get everyone on board so fast. Like, back then, how did they convince all the radio and TV stations to participate?
It took a huge effort, but the urgency of Amber's case and the public support really helped to cut through any bureaucratic hurdles. And this was before the internet as we know it, so they were doing a lot of this with phone calls and faxes, even meeting face-to-face.
Wow, that's dedication.
Yeah.
So, all that to say, the system worked.
It did. It really made a difference. But it's important to know that they don't just issue an Amber Alert for any child who goes missing. It has to meet certain criteria. It's not just about casting a wide net. It's about quality of information.
So it's more than just calling 911 because you can't find your kid at the playground.
Exactly. That's why you don't see them all the time. They have to be pretty sure there's been a real abduction and the child is in immediate danger.
I see. So what happens when they do issue an alert? How does that information actually get to everyone?
It's like a chain reaction. The police activate the alert, and it goes out to all the media outlets, the transportation departments, and of course, to our phones.
It's true. I've seen them on those highway signs, even digital billboards sometimes.
It's everywhere. And that's the point, to get your attention, to make you stop and take notice.
From radio broadcasts in '96 to this huge network. That's pretty incredible.
It really is. They've done a good job keeping up with technology to reach as many people as possible.
But at the end of the day, it still comes down to people being aware and reporting anything they see.
Absolutely. We're all part of this safety net. It's not just passively getting the alerts. We have to be vigilant. Pay attention to what's happening around us.
It goes back to what Diane Simone said. If people know what to look for, they can really help.
Exactly. One person's idea, born out of a terrible tragedy, can really change the world.
It's amazing how much good can come from something so awful.
And it really shows how people all over want the same thing, to keep kids safe. The Amber Alert system is a great example of that.
And to think, it all started in one place, in Dallas-Fort Worth, and now it's used all over the world.
It's become a model for other countries, and it's great that they're constantly looking for ways to make it even better.
Right. We've seen how it's changed over the years, from radio to TV, highway signs, those digital billboards, and now on our phones. But with all those changes, how do they make sure people don't just start ignoring the alerts, especially with all the notifications we get on our phones these days?
That's a good question. It's something they're always working on. One thing is to make sure the alerts only go to people who are actually in the area where the abduction happened. No point in sending it to someone miles away, right?
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So what else?
Well, they're also trying to make the content of the alerts better, make them short and to the point, but still get people's attention.
So it's about finding that balance, making it noticeable without being too annoying.
Exactly. It's a challenge, but they're always analyzing the data, getting feedback, and tweaking things to make it work as well as possible.
Sounds like there's a lot of science behind it.
There is, and it just shows how important this issue is. We can't just sit back and think everything's fine. We have to keep coming up with new ways to use technology, get communities involved, and make sure the police and the public are working together.
It's always evolving. And speaking of challenges, I wanted to bring up Amber's case again. It's really sad that even with the system named after her, they never found her killer.
It is heartbreaking. They had over 7,000 leads, a $75,000 reward, and still nothing. There were even reports that the laundromat near where she was taken was full of people who might have seen something, but they all disappeared before the police could talk to them. Maybe they were scared.
Oh, wow. I hadn't heard that. It makes you think about how fear can stop people from coming forward.
It does. We need to make sure that everyone feels safe sharing information with the police, no matter who they are or what their situation is.
Because any little detail could be the key to solving a case. And for Amber's case, there's still hope, right? I mean, with all the advancements in DNA technology, maybe they'll be able to find something new.
There's always hope. The case is still open, and the technology is getting better all the time. They might be able to use DNA evidence that they couldn't use before.
It's incredible what they can do with DNA these days. I read about a case where they solved a murder from 40 years ago using DNA.
It really is remarkable. It shows you how dedicated people are to finding the truth, even when it seems impossible.
It's inspiring, actually, but it also makes you think about Amber's family and what they must be going through. It's been so long, and they still don't have answers.
Absolutely. While the Amber Alert system has saved so many children, Amber's case is a reminder that there's still so much work to be done.
We can't afford to be complacent. We need to keep pushing for progress, for better technology, and for more awareness.
It's a shared responsibility. We can't forget about the children who've been hurt. Like Amber, their stories need to keep motivating us to do better.
Well said. So I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We've talked about where the Amber Alert system came from, how it works, how it's impacted child safety, and how they're constantly working to make it better.
And we've looked at the legacy of Amber Hagerman, how one little girl's story sparked a movement that's helped children all over the world.
It really makes you think, what would things be like today if that system didn't exist?
It's a tough question to answer, but it definitely makes you appreciate the power of one person's idea and the importance of communities coming together to protect their children.
It's something we should all think about. Even though we don't see those alerts every day, they're always there, working in the background.
Like a silent guardian. And every time one goes off, it's a reminder that we need to be vigilant. We all have a part to play in keeping kids safe.
So true. Whether it's being aware of our surroundings, reporting something suspicious, or just talking to our kids about safety, it all makes a difference.
And ultimately, that's Amber's legacy. Her story reminds us that even in the face of something terrible, we can create positive change.
It really makes you think, what would we do without those alerts?
It's hard to imagine, right? It's become such an important part of how we respond to these situations.
It's easy to forget about it when you don't see those alerts every day, but it's always there, in the background, ready to go.
It's reassuring, in a way, knowing that system is in place, even if we don't always see it in action.
You know, we've talked a lot about the technology and the procedures, but I keep thinking about the human side of it. How one little girl's tragedy sparked this whole movement.
It's a powerful reminder of what a community can do when it comes together, and how, even in the face of something so awful, people can create something good.
It's inspiring, really. And it shows that we all have a responsibility to protect children.
Absolutely. Whether it's being aware of our surroundings, talking to our kids about safety, or reporting anything that seems suspicious, we can all play a part.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of Amber Alerts, I think it's safe to say that it's a pretty incredible system. It's saved countless lives, and it's a testament to the power of one idea and the dedication of so many people.
It's a story that's still unfolding, too. They're constantly working to make it better, to use new technology, and to adapt to new challenges.
And ultimately, it's a story about hope. The hope that no family will ever have to go through what Amber's family went through, and the hope that we can create a world where every child is safe.
Well said. And thanks for joining us on this deep dive. It's been a fascinating conversation.
Yes, thank you to everyone for listening. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.